So, why e-commerce marketing is important? Well, the most challenging thing when it comes to e-commerce, obviously, the first things first, to build up an e-commerce platform. That is the first most important thing. But the next thing after that is, of course, you've got to tell people you exist. Now that's when marketing comes in. And this way, we're using different channels. We're going to be presenting different channels that companies use to tell the world that they exist. And unless people know that you exist, you're never going to get a chance to either improve or start to sell something online. So it's absolutely essential that marketing is an important part of any business plan for an e-commerce site. So if you were to build up an e-commerce site from scratch, or if you were to build up an e-commerce business, marketing needs to be a very important part in that business plan. Because that is the time when you're going to present every detail about the ways and the methods and medium and the messages and what you're going to say to the people that you want to reach out to. So, what we're going to talk about today, some of these channels we're going to look into. Pay-per-click advertising, the most popular advertising platform on the web today, and the most popular and most recognized platform for pay-per-click is Google. So Google has got this very huge and powerful AdWords platform that every second business almost uses in the world to promote their products and services, where you would design, run your campaigns, design your messages, and design your ads. And we're going to look into Google Ads shortly in this lecture. Then, next, social media. Some of you are doing our social networking module. So we're going to look at the role of social media for sharing the messages, sharing the offers, sharing all different ideas that we might have for our e-commerce website, and then ultimately building relationships with people that we want to serve. So in other words, this is an opportunity where we can start to connect personally in a personal level. Because what we said, connections matter. And in the business world we live in today, we're more interested to be buying from companies that care about us. And one way for companies to care and show that they really want to support us is to use social media. Because social media gives that opportunity to connect in a personal level, which we haven't had before. In the past, we've talked about this. You have to make that telephone call and be on the phone for 15 minutes, talk to someone, I don't know, around the world somewhere, and then maybe not even be able to get to the solution you need for your problem. Next, content marketing, which is more or less a key and the most probably important part of social media. Because, in other words, what you do with content marketing is that you build up content to do what? To educate your customers and then potentially turn those readers into customers, long-lasting customers possibly. Okay? So content marketing is probably a very popular topic on the web today as well if you start searching online, because it allows companies to have a very good plan about what they're going to publish, which medium are they going to use to publish this content, and how they're going to connect with customers in the way that before I decide to buy something on an e-commerce site, I probably receive some sort of educational content or information-based content from that company that kind of got my attention. And so because now I'm following them, I'm engaging with them, I potentially might end up buying something from them. Right? Now we use Google a lot. Take this as an example. Google's giving you Google Plus for free, Google Docs for free, YouTube for free, and all other sets of platforms totally free. But do you know that running them costs billions? And then you might stop and think for a second, how can they do this? Right? But they want to hook you with their services So then, when you want to start promoting or talking about your brand online, they say, okay, here is our Google pay-per-click platform that you can use to advertise to your audience. So in other words, you can see now that Google does everything to start and provide different platforms, now also heavily engaged in the content marketing as well, because what they want to do through Google+, they want to do everything they can to provide content that will make visitors go and spend time with Google services. Because as soon as you get customers to come along and visit you and see the things that you do, they could potentially, those leads could potentially become a real return on investment for your company. Does that make sense? So you can see now there are lots of huge companies where the entire business is based around marketing. Now if you look at a company called HubSpot, you might have seen some of their content online. If you look at them, first thing you see is their blog. They're very active around social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Vine, every different channel you can think of. Now when you look at all of their presence and all the content they publish, you might think they're a media company and that all they do is just publish content. But behind the scene, what they have is a very expensive social content management tool. I call it sometimes SMT. Yeah? Social management tool, right? Which pretty much manages the content that you publish on the web and tries to turn that content into leads for the business. Right? And so this is the software that they sell. So in other words, they can provide as much data as possible for free, just so then you might one day say, okay, well, they've got really good content, I'm really learning a lot, and I'm doing the same with my company, but how can I tell whether I'm getting anything in return as a result of that investment in the content? And they say, oops, by the way, this is our solution, you can use it, it's very expensive, but it does the job. And then you'll say, okay, well, I've been reading what they've done, I'm doing the same with my company, it's helping me to share different news and different items and connect with a customer. Now I need to know, how can I measure it? And what they're offering is pretty much a social network, social media tool there, which is not cheap, it's expensive, but it'll help you manage your content marketing plan. Next, affiliate marketing is pretty much connecting your services with different other platforms, different other websites that will bring customers to you using their own presence on the web. And then you'll pay a specific amount, a specific percentage that you agree with them, and they'll drive traffic as much as they can to your website. And as soon as they have brought you traffic into your website, you'll be paying them for the service. Affiliate marketing is very popular as a platform for promoting your products and services. And in addition to that, sometimes, not long ago, this was one of the most popular things on the web to be able to get customers. It still is, but used to be the #1 platform. Then mobile, of course, mobile is an important bit. Why? We talked about this some times ago, but with the mobile, we're giving it a better idea about the customer, who the customer is. We're getting a full profile of a customer, using the location, times when they access these applications, when do they talk with friends, what do they talk about, and when are they most engaged with the content. So in other words, this is another very important channel because it helps companies build up a clear picture about who their customers are. Until now, they were missing an important element of customer journey, which was location. So you knew pretty much everything about a customer, apart from the fact that you didn't know where they were tweeting from, sending messages from, and also connecting with people from. But now almost every smartphone you've got in your pocket has got enabled location-based services. And with that, you are telling company pretty much everything that they need to know about the customer. And they never had all of this information before. So in other words, now they're able to go back with their marketing teams, tailor different marketing messages, and then publish them on the time, on the day, on the place you need them. So instead of getting an offer from Nando's, for instance, when you go at university, you'll get a Nando's offers when you're actually in the Galleria somewhere. Because they know you checked in, they know you're locally, they know you're around, and they'll try to get your attention. And that's what most companies do now. Email is still the most most powerful in terms of conversion rate as a platform. Email still works. Email is not dead, like some of the posts that you might find online. Email is still powerful simply because it enables companies to go back and communicate with those people that they've got in the database and then let them know about the services and products they're selling. However, the only problem with email is the fact that lots of companies do not use it properly because they tend to send the same type of email to 90% of their customers instead of having tailored email for different groups of customers. Because what I need from X company is not what you need from them. I've got different needs, you've got different needs. So these emails need to be tailored and they need to be sent at the right time, and they shouldn't be overdone. And that's what lots of companies today do. And I'm sure you've got examples in your inbox when you receive emails from companies that ask you about all sorts of things to buy or like services to purchase, which you're not even interested in. How do you go about planning or doing an advertising campaign for an e-commerce site? Well, according to research and some of the practices in the industry, these are some of the steps you might need to follow, right? First one, and really the fundamental one, is to understand your customers. You've got to know who are those people you want to serve. Remember, we talked about personas and understanding this in the customer journey lecture, right? You've got to make sure you understand who are the people you serve. Who are your customers? Okay? What do they do? What do they work? You know, what do they socialize with? Okay? What do they do in their everyday life? Okay? What's their hobbies? What is their interest? Right? So it's important to understand that. The next thing you're going to do is that you're going to start to define your goals. What is exactly you want to get out of those social marketing campaign in an e-commerce website? Okay? You understand? You start to design your goals. Now, what those goals can be. They can be around selling specific type of product. They can be about telling the world about these new products or new flagship products that you're launching this year. It can be about selling current products more, or it can be about promoting a landing page that you might have for an e-commerce website. But you've got to have the goals put in place. And when we talked about, from time to time about Google Analytics, we talked about the fact that Google enables you to set up goals for your own marketing plan. And this way you know where the ultimate place you want to be with your business in terms of achieving your goals. Second one is selecting appropriate social channels, right? You've got to make sure that you know which are the channels that you would be using for promoting your content, your marketing plans, and also your e-commerce website. So you're going to kind of build up an idea based on your understanding around customers, right? You've got to tell yourself and your team where your customers are spending most time and which medium you can use to reach out to those people. Then, identify your resources. It's very important. You've got to be honest with yourself and within your company how much of resources you've got available to do this. So you have to be realistic within your company to be able to set the goals that you can actually achieve within your company. And so that ultimately depends on the amount of people you have in your team that can help you do that. The next thing you will do is that you will interact, engage, educate your users. Remember we talked about content marketing, an important bit in that one there. And then as soon as you've done that, as soon as you started to help people, connect with them, support them, and also make sure you're building up those relationships, then they will not be worried if you're going to try and sell them something. Because they already trust and believe in your services. Now, if you're going to be offer something by Google, and we've been, every single one of us been using Google for a long time now. If you've been offered something from Google, it can be a service, it can be a tool, it can be anything like that, you probably you will consider it, and probably you might even buy it. Because you already know how good they are in providing the services on the web for you. So in other words, they worked very hard through different platforms they've had so far to be able to get to the situation where now they can say, oh, by the way, we launched a new platform from Google for businesses to use and have a much more successful marketing campaign online. And you'll have to pay this much a month. So you wouldn't hesitate too much because you know their services and you know how good they are. Social channels. Just quickly, we know social media is big with Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Wikipedia, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Vine, Instagram, and all the rest, okay? But in addition to that, what is driving this growth a lot now are tablets and mobile. Tablets and mobile are becoming key drivers of these social activities, right? In fact, they are helping these social channels become very popular indeed. Simply because we have our phones with us at all times, and we're using them to engage on Twitter, to engage on Facebook, to engage on LinkedIn, to engage in all of our favorite social channels. And imagine if we didn't use our phones to do that. The usage of these channels would be much lower. And that's why now Facebook and Twitter and everybody else, they try their best to work out how they're going to use these interactions in the mobile platform for their business growth. So that's an important bit to keep in mind. And and you might say, what is the role of mobile for an e-commerce, right? Well, the role for an e-commerce is essential. Why? Because this specific device is with me all the time, and you've got your e-commerce website. You realize that I have something with me all the time that I might be using to either shop in your site, receive your offers via email, or engage with you on social channels. And that is powerful, isn't it? So as an e-commerce website, you can't ignore it. Because it enables you to be next to the customer 24/7. Our mobile phones are with us almost at all times. You forget your keys, your wallets, and everything else, sometimes even to eat, but you'll never forget your mobile phone somewhere. It's always going to be with you, next to my bed. Okay? Which, there are disadvantages of having that next to your bed all the time, but that's what's happening. So we can't ignore it. And that is very important for e-commerce, and for most other business, but in this case for e-commerce. Next, your customers are not just connected, they are engaged. And that's what John and Tim from O'Reilly said. Okay? So in other words, until now we had customers who were connected because we had some social presence on the web, and we had a website, we had a blog. But now they are engaged because they're talking about us with other customers. They're talking to us, they're engaging with us, and they expect to hear from us, and they expect to get a true support and customer service. So it's an important thing to keep in mind. And why? Because this can be expensive. If you want to make sure that you are building a relationship with your customers and you're building connections that matter, you have got to be able to have resources and people in place in the company that help you engage with your customers. Because if you don't, you slowly start to lose that relationship you have with them. You start to miss out on some of the support that they can give you, and obviously you can get that for free without even paying for it. And then ultimately you might lose them as a customers because they're going to go with another company that can offer this to them. You need to understand social channels. Now, some of you who've been, who are still in our social networking module, you've pretty much learned a lot by now. Some of you, how many of you are not in a social networking module? Can I see your hands? You're not in a social networking module.
So most of the classes in the social networking module as well.
Is that right?
Wow.
Who is in a social networking module? Raise your hands. Oh, okay. So
who hasn't got any hands?
So it's half of the classes in our social networking module. Now, for an e-commerce site, it's important to understand social channels. Why? Because based on the social channel and what is being said there, that's when your content needs to be tailored and designed around those topics, around those themes. It's really important to do that. But of course, the most important thing to remember here as well, this takes time and takes resources. So when we say resources, we mean people. When we say time plan, we mean about planning. Okay? So you've got to somehow have an idea about what are the key social channels for an e-commerce site to use. You would do that based on where your customers are spending most of their time, what are they talking about, which channels they are using, which social networking channel suits the best to your business based on what you're selling. That's pretty much the process you can go through to identify which channel you will be in with your e-commerce website. Of course, when you talk about social networking, the next thing you've got to do for your e-commerce website, you've got to plan your social networking strategy. You need to know how you're going to behave and how you're going to engage and how you're going to support your customers using social networking channels. But, of course, SWOT analysis is an important element that gives you an idea about how well you are with the company and what are the strengths, what are the threats, weaknesses, and opportunities within your business to be able to do a good job when it comes to social media and social channels. So, what else can you do? Well, of course, an important element here is the fact that you could easily start to understand more about your customers because of the social channels and the content that they have got in there. So you will research your customers using social channels. In other words, most of our customers will have some sort of presence, some sort of information in social channels that is important for us. Then, of course, create online profiles. That's what most of the companies will have to start to do. They have to start to create those profiles and those presences. They have to define goals in social channels, very similar to having a goal for your Google pay-per-click advertising. Select appropriate channels, and then identify resources. You've got to know how well these fits in with all other marketing efforts you've got in the company. Publish content, which obviously needs to be fun and educational because this is what works the best. You will then interact, engage with users, and potentially after that, when you've done a very good job, you start to introduce your offers, you start to introduce your landing pages, and start to build a relationship with customers. And I've got a video here that I want to show you, hopefully.
When you're ill, it can put your life on hold.
Okay, now obviously you can see why content matters, but
Yes.
creating content, yes, but creating content that is engaging, that is fun, that is exciting, that is interesting, it's not always cheap thing to do. It costs money. It can be very expensive indeed. However, there are all sorts of ways for the companies to build the content that, I'm sorry.
Just too distracting, Hira.
Oh, is it? Okay. Are you okay now?
We're not paying attention.
Okay, so now you're paying attention. So, okay, of course, what happens the next is when customers and in general visitors online start to see what you've done and they like what you do, of course the next thing is they're going to know where they can see more of that kind of thing, right? So after this campaign was launched from TNT company, of course what they wanted to do, they wanted to say, okay, well, what we're going to do now, and then they wanted to go back and just listen to what customers have got to say, what visitors have got to say. And the next question they made was, okay, well, when is the next push, right? When are we going to see something really cool, really awesome as this one? So in other words, as soon as you start to engage with the customers, you're getting them closer to you and to your business. Then of course there is an art to actually developing, bringing those leads into, converting those leads into customers is a challenging thing. But as you get those visitors closer to you, you've got a better chance of converting them. And that's why the role of content is really important. Because it's a natural way of us connecting with businesses. We connect with lots of businesses simply because, why? We have been somehow supported or we've been cared about and they look after us. The most important thing that you always think about before using a company is, can I trust them? And this is not the key word I'm saying now because I think it's this way, but it's also what research continuously shows that that's the first most important thing you think about within your head when you are about to use a company. Can I trust these guys? But you can't build a trust if you don't engage with someone. You engage with someone, you educate, you support, right? And then people start to trust you and your brand increases your reputation as well. Of course, all of the content needs to be made easy to share, and that's just a plugin that can be used for most e-commerce websites and blogs online as well. Now, when it comes to online reputation, my theory is that remarkable content, there are two things that happens mostly about the content on the web. The one is creating remarkable content, and the second is about sharing. these are two major things that happen today on the social space, right? And on the web in most cases. And obviously these two very important elements of the social and web in general drive online reputation. And we said reputation is essential. If your company has got a great reputation in terms of delivering and providing services and customers and also creating content, you're likely to have more visitors converting to customers and likely to build a business that lasts. And of course, these are some of the processes we can think of when it comes to identify ways of building content. For those of you who've been in our social channel, you know that this is what we've been through in terms of identifying, researching, learning, and identifying content that we want to publish, set ourselves a goal, decide which channel we want to push this content through, be aware of resources. You see, we come back to resources all the time because it's about people. People will get the job done. Educate, so the content needs to be educational type of content, and then ultimately you'll be able to build trust with the customers and possibly convert those visitors into customers. Now let's look at pay-per-click, hopefully before we finish. Pay-per-click is, as I said, a platform for advertising online using Google services. Okay? Now, you might think it's just Google, but there are so many other companies who offer these services online. And I've just presented some of them in there. And lots of companies use different channels. They don't just stick to Google. Because remember, all of these different big companies, starting with Yahoo, AdBright, ClickServe, and Target Point as well, they're very huge companies. So they've got a higher reach of people onto the web. So potentially, this is something to keep in mind in terms of platforms that provide B2C services. Key ideas on pay-per-click, of course, you are advertising next to express demand. People want what you're selling. Okay? So in other words, when somebody searches something on the web, your website and your content needs to be tailored and optimized around those inquiries and those requests that are made on the web. Remember, we've said there are two different search results on Google. Okay? Search results that there are organic part of the results in the search and optimization, which is the organic part, and then the paid search, right? The paid search you normally get in your right-hand side with the Google ads in there. But the organic one is driven by what? We said is driven by links, exchanging links, connecting, right? Because we said Google PageRank is obviously calculated based on the links that you have with other relevant websites. Second is going to be about the content that you're publishing and whether that content is engaging and whether that content gets people to come and visit your website. And third is about whether your website has been fully optimized and built in the way that Google likes, using meta tags, and HTML standards that are accepted by Google and in general by web as well. So Google will sell ad space through an auction based on the price effectiveness on the landing page equality, and as soon as you go in your Google AdWords platform, you'll be able to see that. The really good thing about the Google Ads is that they're short, they're to the point. You can design and show to the people at different times of the day, different places, different locations. So in other words, you can be very specific to where you want to target these ads. And the really good thing is that you will only be paying to Google once somebody has clicked on your ad. So you're not going to be paying Google just because you're publishing there, but you're actually going to be paying when some sort of traffic starts to get to your website. And that's quite good. Now, how to do that? Of course, the first thing to do is to go into AdWords website in Google, create an account, set up a budget. Normally you can have a like a test campaign identify a budget for 30 or 60 day period. You can even say, I want to spend 50 quid because I just want to learn how it works. It's a really powerful platform if you've got a website or if you have a blog or family business that you might want to promote online. And do that for free for your father or for someone in the family. Because if you do that, then obviously you'll be able to learn how it works. And it's really important to do that because it will serve you for your future as well. Identify keywords to purchase. You'll identify keywords that you will purchase to build up your ad. You will then, of course, create your own ads. Remember, headlines can't have more than 25 spaces, 25 characters only. Ad descriptions, 2 per 35 characters, you'll see that. In addition to that, this is when you start to add the links to the products that you want to sell in your e-commerce website. And you will obviously have clear call to action, as we said in the previous lectures. You will check the settings in your campaign. You will say, okay, this is when I want to publish my ads. You'll design different ads to identify which one works the best. Buying keywords, when you buy keywords, normally you buy more specific keywords rather than having very general keywords, because if you say, I want Hearts versus Hearts holidays, quite different, or versus Hearts county. If you just buy a Hearts keyword, so it's Hearts police, Hearts county, Hearts traveling, what that is. So you've got to make sure you buy keywords that are connected and make sense. If you wonder why this is so important and why we're talking about pay-per-click, well, just last year in the third quarter, Google made $14 billion. That's where Google makes most of the money. And by the way, even in your YouTube channel that you're watching every day, all of those campaigns are designed and are run using the Google AdWords platform. So ultimately, that's the backbone and the hub of everything. You make money, of course, when your revenue is greater than your costs. So you've got to make sure that you know how much you're selling and whether you can actually be able to cover all your costs on the website. Design, hosting, redesign, marketing, and everything else. We've talked about a conversion rate. Only 1 to 3% approximately convert into customers. And then you will see that, obviously, some of the details and the data that you will see now in this slide are as a result of the research that has been done on effectiveness of using Google AdWords. And I'm not going to get into detail now because we should be finishing soon. Keywords availability. There is an auction-based website. You bid for keywords and then you would buy them based on your overall previous success that you've had with Google AdWords and then how well you've done in the past. Now, Google AdWords that you see on your right-hand page are not on the top. Those companies that are not down on the top are not because they are the richest companies, right? You can't just go there and just say, I'm BMW and have all the money you want to Google and I'll pay everything you want for me to be in the top. It doesn't work that way. You'll have to show a good history of the ad that you published in the past, that it has actually done a good job, it's shown to be popular, it's shown to be relevant, and it has performed well before you get a chance to get hired. Sometimes some companies who are in the first are actually not paying the most for Google Ads. So it's the other way around. It's about relevance and not how rich you are. You can assess the keywords in Google using these different channels. I strongly recommend you click on some of these links because you can go and watch how the pricing works in Google. Learn to write good, clear ads. Very important, very nice. They're quite interesting to do. Try with different types of ads. Have a test budget and make sure that you're actually using Google Analytics to track how well you're doing.